Hey folks, super glad you are still here for the awesome quilting and camping adventure. Today we're going to be working on the small trees block from Charisma Horton's wonderful summer camp pattern. Are you ready? Let's get stitching. Well, that's right. Welcome back to another amazing outdoor adventure quilting camping series here. I am Rob Appell, your host from Stitchin Heaven, and I see there's a bunch of shadows and weird lighting stuff, but it's a beautiful, it's almost a little after 4 o'clock. We're waiting for golden hour a little bit through the trees. I'm up in northern Washington, real near my friend Scott's house, and I just wanted to take a moment and walk everybody through the Little Trees block. Now, the Little Trees block from Charisma Horton's Summer Camp Quilt pattern is really fun and easy, but I couldn't even get the prep work done without all of you because we need to make one of our squares together so that I can show you how all of the colors work. Now, the entire quilt is 60 inches by 72 inches. Of course, we have kits available for you at Stitchin Heaven. You're going to need the pattern to follow along, and today's pattern instructions are on pages 3 and 4. So it actually starts at the bottom of page 3 here, called Small Tree, and then it's going to carry over here onto the top half of page 4 as we go. And if you're already looking at the diagrams, you can see we're actually going to do the same magic flying geese like we did in our star block just a little earlier. So you already know how to do this. So I'm just going to walk you through the color changes and how we're going to build our awesome small trees block. So this is going to be great. You're going to need a total of 4 of these all together, and you're mixing and matching all of your greens for this construction. And of course, all that information is right there for you in the cutting information on your pattern. We are using Benartex's Shadow Blush fabric, which I absolutely love, but any basic can work, of course. And as we getting ready to dive in here, I've got a couple of things to hold my fabrics down, as often when we're filming out here in the wind, it can be a little bit challenging, but boy, is it awfully awesome to get to sew out here in nature. And the camp out's been going great. Those of you who have been following along on some of the other videos, you know I've had quite an adventure so far. Now, what I've done is for each one of the groupings, each one of the trees, I'm going to need 4 of the squares, and the squares on the wrong side, the back side, have been marked with a diagonal line, just like we've done before. So let's go ahead and get ready to match these up. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay one of these with that diagonal heading down, and I'm going to grab a couple straight pins. You don't see me use these little things often, but I am going to use it to secure this block because I'm going to line up a second block to it. Let's see. That one's already marked as well. Great. So now, folks, what you're doing is you're just lining these up so that your chalk line, your pen line, your marker line there goes all the way through, and you're making sure that your small squares are on the corner of your big square. And then we won't be sewing through the pins. These are just holding the actual squares in place, mostly just for when we get to this little intersection right here. These chalk lines, folks, this is a guideline. We're doing a 1/4 inch on either side. I think I finally said it right in this video. And let's get Louie's little battery light going. There we go. That may help you all see just a little bit better. And one of the fun things about, heavens, I was winding my bobbin before I started and I got everything else set up. So let me get the bobbin back in the machine and let's get this thing rocking and rolling here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're just going to hit the gas here and sewing a 1/4 inch on either side. Let's not sew over that straight pin, and once it's out, you can just set it aside. I guess my fingers are a little chilly. Not as bad as sewing in the snow, however. Or I shouldn't say bad, I just should say cold. It was an awesome adventure, that's for sure. All right, here, and just making sure that our corners are still lined up nice down there, of course. And then all that those are secure. And again, because you're making 4 of these tree units or tree blocks, you're probably chain piecing. But I've already done a little bit of the prep work here, as you can see. This is kind of where we're heading, but we need to add another color on top. So as I'm building up these units here now, I'm just going to go ahead and get myself into a predicament with my threads. There we go, save that. And so we're just going to use this one block at a time. But of course you can chain piece. Okay, so now you're just going to go ahead and cut through that diagonal line that you created, and That was your first marking line, right? So that's been cut through. And now we're going to go ahead and press these bad boys, these little ears over, or the small background color over and away from the big square. That helps a lot with the setup of the next ones. Nice and easy like that. And you're going to do that to both sides, of course. I think these look like little raccoon heads, and so being that we're filming in these wonderful small little trees here behind me, I would assume there's probably some raccoons watching. I know there's been some squirrels, and maybe Scott's cat Bill has followed me down the road. I am not far from his house, and his cat Bill is very interested in the quilting going on outside here. Okay, so now we still have 2 of these remaining squares. And with these remaining squares, we're going to drop these units here. And you just want to make sure that this diagonal that we started with goes off through the tip, through Mr. Raccoon's forehead there. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to stitch on both sides. So this is what they refer to often as the magic flying geese method. And let me show you. You can chain piece these if you would like. So I'll do one. Don't mind that. I just got a little thread caught underneath there. So we're just going to let that out so you can see what's going on. I love my little old Singer out here in the bush because we can sew out of the back of the car, making this super fun and entertaining. And I love the way it looks. But I gotta say, I'm a bit of a sucker for modern sewing machines. As you see, I keep getting thread in the wrong places and stuff. There's so many conveniences that Handy Quilter 510 at home I have is really, really smooth and nice. Built-in thread cutters, those kinds of things. But this is exactly what I wanted for the vehicle. I wanted something I could paint. So anyways, 1 row of stitching on both of these. Now I'm going to sew down the other side. Let's see if I can get a little bit better start this time by keeping both of my thread tails underneath my presser foot. Now we're coming from the top of the raccoon down. Nice and easy, just following that chalk line from before. Okay, same thing on that second unit. Making sure my stitch is finished, that helps the threads release proper. Now we're just going to cut the threads out first here because I was chain piecing. Now we're going to cut the units apart. I won't need those pins anymore, although it is holding those parts there for me. That's the trunk we'll get to here in a second. Trunk of the tree. So on the diagonal, on the chalk line from before, do them all at the same time. The benefit of chain piecing or Henry Ford style assembly line quilting that I like so much. I like that feature, Alex. I like that feature. That's really cool. You just tap it. Did you see that? You just tap it and it goes away. Perfect. Okay. And so I'm just going to press all 4 of these real quick here. And I'm going to let the car come down the road and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have the 4 units pressed out. If you wanted to take the time to trim and tidy all of that, you most certainly could. But what we're going to do now with these pieces is we're going to start to stack them and build them into the trees. And in the pattern, there's been a mix and match of the different colors. So you don't have to go light, medium, dark. Feel free to mix them around because that kind of gives a little more variety to the blocks. And we will definitely be doing that in the tall trees in the next video. We'll be mixing on variety of colors. So what I can do now, just to show you how the block comes together very simply, is grab one of the ones I've already been constructing, right? And I'm going to go ahead and lay this color in here. So you're going to use 1, 2, 3 of your half. Well, these are called flying geese at this point. So we're going to use 3 of those plus the trunk to build this. So let me show you how you would build your trunk so that we can finish off this block. We have a couple of more seams to do on the side as well. So you can see the brown is here. So just make sure you don't sew them this way. You want to make them tall and skinny. These are these are our little trees, but they're tall, skinny little trees. These are babies. These are just growing. So anyways, hit this with your 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Sewing one of your background fabrics to either side of the trunk fabric, the brown. And what I'll often do if I'm not crossing over seams, I'll just go ahead, especially if I'm out here trying to teach tutorials in the wilderness, I'll go ahead and sew these two parts together before I press them over. I've now been using this odd iron we found that does not take much energy for 3 or 4 tutorials, and I'm very pleased so far with its performance, and it's not draining the Jackery battery system too much. Had the solar panels out a little earlier today at Scott's house. That was really cool for charging up so that I could come out and film this out. So again, just an easy press for that, okay? And then that would fit in right there. So as a reminder, folks, you're gonna use 3 of your flying geese. They do not have to be in any color order. And what I recommend is mix and match all of your tree colors before you stitch any of them together so that you make sure you have the variety you need. And now we're gonna go ahead and just stitch this last row across here so we can put on the finishing touches. And you know, folks, let's point out something real quick. I try to do a little bit better job in the studio to make sure I'm sewing more accurate and more precise. But one of the things I don't have out here is a great system for 1/4 inch. My foot's a little narrow and sewing's a little awkward. So anyways, always have excuses prepared for things like this when that happens. But here's the truth of the matter. This is not like a star or anything crazy. This is nothing that has to be super, super precise. We're gonna now be laying these 2 blue strips over like this. So what I'm really gonna do, just so this doesn't bother me, is I'm gonna attend to it right now. Now, if that was something that you just couldn't deal with, I would assume you would unstitch it and put it back together right, and that's okay. Or if you trimmed all these down, that would also be less likely to happen. But what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna line up, see my seam allowances are still parallel, so I'm just gonna take one side of this and I'm gonna trim it down, because the truth is, at the end of all of the work, I'm gonna take the time to square up all of the blocks, right? So now I can just go ahead, those lines aren't bothering me visually anymore. I'm gonna put this on, but because I've trimmed it off, I'm gonna put it on with the slightest seam allowance, because that's gonna make up for the fact that I have probably removed a little of the math I need later, and I'll actually do the same thing on the other side. So compensating for the lack in accuracy before, hopefully will be okay now. And a lot of that is because I was sewing on different sewing machines, preparing myself. And so you've heard those rumors that if you're going to sew on different machines, really check your seam allowances. But more so, it's just that I'm sewing in the woods and my table's jumping around and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't trade this for the world, folks. This has really been a great adventure. Okay, and you can see that looks just fine. And if you look behind me, you'll notice not every tree is exactly the same also. Okay, so we would now take the time to press this over. We have one more seam to do so that I can show you this awesome tree block. So grabbing another strip, right sides together. And again, I'm just gonna do a little bit slighter seam allowance over here. Remember, if the wide sides are a little too wide, we can always trim it back down at the end. What I like to do is get all of my blocks constructed and then make any final adjustments to the squaring. And I actually think this quilt could be beautiful with a little extra sashings in it if you want it as well. But then, of course, you would have to adjust the amount of backing fabric required on the pattern. Sorry, all of a sudden that was hard to say while stitching here. That's all right, folks. Just bear with me a second longer and we'll have the seam done. And I think we just did. Okay, let's pull that on out there, get it cut, and show you what your final small trees block will look for from your Summer Camp by Charisma Horton, taught by yours truly, Rob Appell, out in the wonderful Pacific Northwest. So that's what the block's gonna look like, folks. Isn't that awesome? I think it looks terrific. And like I said, and you can tell by in some of the prep work, right? I have different colors in different places. So now that we made all of our lighter green versions, I can go ahead and match that up there. See, I had some of the other trees waiting, and so this one I did not stitch together, so I can add variety like that, and so on and so forth. SEW, so on and so forth. And anyways, I think that's awesome. Let me come around here so I can see you all just a little bit better, because I know it's getting a little dark and shadowed out there, but I'm having just a wonderful, wonderful time teaching all of you as I travel. I feel super blessed to have you following along. We have a little bit more quilting and sewing to discuss in this project, so stick with me and we will see you in another tutorial. Until then, folks, stay well. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really helps support our channel. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Hit the little button to be notified every time we go live or do a new video for all of you. And here's one from the past I think you'll really enjoy.